All right, some of these SGT reports are really good, and I like this part here.
Rockefeller and George H.W. Bush are now paying the spiritual price for their crimes they committed while their hearts were beating. In the afterlife, forever. I firmly believe that. I guess these people, these demons, believe the afterlife holds some magical treasure in hell for them. They must actually believe that to operate so fully, so filled with evil while they're here on this planet. That's the part I can't get my arms around.
I wonder how many of them actually have had that reasoning that there is something else coming for them. I have to imagine that there's a lot of, how can you not look back on a life that you spent wheeling and dealing and doing whatever the hell to enrich
killing and murder and drug dealing and victimizing families and snatching kids and pedophilia, destroying the inner city, destroying black families. Remember how strong black families were in the 60s when Martin Luther King spoke in Washington, D.C.? Go look at that footage. Those were all strong, proud, nuclear black families. Now, what is the illegitimacy rate in inner cities? 70%? 80%?
75%.
This is all CIA drug running, man. They caused all of this. Divide and conquer.
But let me just say on top of that, I love listening and reading people like Walter Williams and Jason Riley and Larry Elder, of course, Thomas Sowell, and reading people who have actually gone into depth about what this has been about, how they can make such profound statements about how the black family was actually able to survive slavery, but they weren't able to survive the welfare state. And in that kind of respect, yes, they were playing with a little bit of a handicap because when the Great Society was put forward, they were already higher up in the illegitimacy rate because of the problems that they had faced culturally in the antebellum South and coming out of the 19th century. But from there, like you said, you're seeing that balloon to 75% illegitimacy rates, broken homes, but even white families, they're around a 40% rate now too. This is something where it doesn't matter about race anymore. Race has become a winning ticket. Whenever you're out there trying to garner votes, you do whatever you want, but the whole notion of this is full spectrum dominance over everybody, all things, using whatever tools that are available to you. It is a really big class warfare thing. If you're elite, if you are in part of that elite group, it doesn't matter if the people below you are black and white. You look at all of them as insects. You look at all of them as insects. That's exactly what's going on here. So we've moved out of one phase into another phase. They've kind of expanded. They want to hook everybody in that net. It is a financial slavery. It is a different type of feudalism right now. And I just wish that nuance would be opened up in a little bit more of a cultural way when we talk about things like race, because it really does restrict us in what we're able to get across. There's so many people out there that think that the impacts of slavery in this country, even though it was a global phenomenon, and especially that was starting to be phased out in the Western hemisphere, in the Western civilizations throughout the 19th century. But it's still around, there's still 30 to 40 million slaves living in the world today, mostly in the parts of the world that they're trying to import people from, to be able to replace the populations of people who are dying out because they're giving themselves over to the false song of socialism. And it just seems to be that nobody wants to have kids or start families anymore under socialism. It's a very interesting thing that goes hand in hand. But what I wanted to get around to and actually wrap up with is that is why we need to be able to have these nuanced conversations, because it is spun in a way where you are actually invalidating the claims of the impacts of slavery and the handicap that it put on black families around the country coming out of the 19th century into the 20th. You don't have to deny any of that horror. You don't have to deny any of the horror of federally mandated, federally enforced segregation.
Yeah, but you know what, Frank, that whole topic is a divide and conquer topic. It's black versus white. They want the races fighting because look what's happening right now in Libya, where that witch cackled about we came, we saw, he died. They've turned Libya into an absolute hellhole where now human trafficking of people of all color, men, women, and children, is off the charts. That didn't exist under Gaddafi, where he was trying to green the desert with one of the world's most epic water projects. And that demon, Hillary Clinton and NATO, came in and blew the place up, just like we did to Iraq, just like they did to Afghanistan, just like they've done all over the world. And I think the world is finally getting fed up, Frank. And I guess that's the best news, is that people are waking up, and we're starting to recognize the real puppet masters. We know Clinton is a puppet, and above her are puppet masters. And people are starting to reject the New World Order in droves all over the world. And I think that's what has the puppet masters scared to death. When you watch people in France protest day after day after day, and then the police are sent in to try to quell those protests, but then the police start to take off their helmets and stand in solidarity with the protesters, nothing will put the fear of God in the dark hearts of these evil people like that.
It's just a matter of what are they going to replace it with? Are they getting the right message out of all this? That is why it's important when you see these wrecking ball movements. I always make that allegory. It's the wrecking ball and the scalpel for me. Donald Trump was the wrecking ball. We had a brick wall that needed to come down. He was anti-politically correct, and he was the only chance of saving our judiciary compared to what Hillary Clinton would have brought in, which would have really been the end of everything. And
it would have been the final nail.
It would have been the final nail.
She would have been the final nail. And so for anybody who says, oh, he's just playing his role, that really still befuddles me, because the simplest plan in the world would have been to implement the witch and have her roll out the exact same policies that we see from Merkel and Macron. That's what she would have done. And if there's any hope we have at all, I want to hearken back to that exchange between Senator Lindsey Graham and Brett Kavanaugh during the Supreme Court Justice hearings with Kavanaugh, in which Graham asked Kavanaugh, is it constitutional in some instances to try people who have committed treason in a military court? And Kavanaugh said yes. And I think that what needs to happen, and I think it's happening behind the scenes, is we need indictments coming down on the most treacherous people, and we need them to endure military tribunals. And I'll share this bit of news with folks. I put it in my latest video, which
This other part I didn't get to. I'm sorry I cut it off. I'll give you the full recording, but here goes.
is we need indictments coming down on the most treacherous people, and we need them to endure military tribunals. And I'll share this bit of news with folks. I put it in my latest video, which we'll have posted right before this interview. This is from the Intelligencer, Wheeling News Register. 305th Military Police Company deploys more than 100 soldiers, military police, to Guantanamo for a 400-day deployment. What do you think are the chances that we're going to see any of these high-level criminals actually tried for their crimes, perhaps in military courts?
Well, the chances, based on a lot of the people that I talk to and what I read, I hope they're right when they say the chances are high. Me, I like being a silent observer and watching all this, and there are pieces that are being arranged on the board right now, and you have to wonder what it's being in preparation for. Let me ask you a question, though. What do you think? It gives me a little bit, I just brought this up with my buddy Chris before I came here. What would have to be done to make sure that these people are pardon-proof? Because if you think that the frustration people are feeling right now in wondering where the indictments are, when the hammer is going to fall, when several hammers are going to fall, there's going to be nothing that matches the frustration of feeling like you've made some kind of progress in taking players off of the board and into jail, only to have a couple of years go by, and one day there will be a puppet back in office. What happens if there is a pardon? We start seeing the pardoning of people, and there has to be a way that whatever is done and whoever goes to jail, and there's many people that need to go to jail, that it has to be pardon proof. The case against them needs to be so damning that anybody that even tries to go near sniffing the idea of pardoning anybody, it has to be impossible to pardon people. That's the only thing I've been thinking about.
Frank?
And that
Yeah.
I'm always hopeful. I'm always hopeful. And the reason why I am hopeful is because there are people like you. There are people like,
I'm going to leave it there, but he brings up a valid point. They got to be pardonable proof. They can't be pardoned. If they're pardoned in several years, what's the use? We lose again. Again, this is Roger Martin from Billings, Montana. I'll give you a whole of 46 minutes on this. Good day.